Hello, Twins fans or 1500 ESPN fans. Actually, I'm going to close this door. Thank you for joining this edition of the Tuesday Morning Coffee, Twins Q&A. Did I get all that? I'm Derek Wetmore. I'm the senior editor and Twins analyst for 1500ESPN.com. I write about Major League Baseball, among other things. I co-host the Touch 'Em All podcast. Okay, there. All my qualifiers. I'm just going to host a morning chat. Come on, filter in, fill up the room. I'm going to be drinking my coffee, so you guys feel free to do whatever you need to do to get ready for your day. And just drop in some questions. I'll take as many as I can possibly get to. I know sometimes they don't pop up on my cell phone, so I'm actually going to jump over to the 1500 ESPN Facebook page right now, and I'll keep them up there. So just in case I miss some there, I will hopefully be able to see them on my computer screen. This week, kind of an interesting week. I went to Twins Fest, and I was sicker than a dog for a couple of days. Better now, thank you for your concern. Some interesting things learned at Twins Fest. Miguel Sano says he's down 15 pounds. Okay, we'll see. More muscular, so muscle weighs more than fat, and I don't know how much body weight he actually dropped, but I'm a little more concerned about the body composition. If he were getting doughy and fat and huge, well, maybe he didn't take his off-season as seriously as he said he was going to. That doesn't seem to be the case, so we'll see what happens. When he gets to Fort Myers, that's really all that matters. I mean, weighing in on a scale, I know a lot of people made a big deal about that. Doesn't really matter to me. I want to see, can he play third base every day? Can he stay healthy throughout a full season? And once he starts to answer those questions, yeah, I'll be a little more interested. I'm going to send out the link here on Twitter, and then I'll get to a couple of other columns that I wrote this week. If you guys have any questions, drop them in. I'll get to as many as I can. Bear with me for 1 second. Okay, there's that. Okay, now it's time to get off Twitter. That can be distracting. I'm going to pull up our Twins page so that we can just go through everything I've written maybe this week. I think I did one of these videos last week, so we shouldn't have too much to catch up on, except that the hot stove's starting to heat up again, according to some reports. The Twins they have a few of the top remaining relievers on their radar, and it's funny to me. We all just kind of like write and say these phrases without thinking about what they mean, because how many times have you read about rumblings, or have you read about guys being on the radar? Or how about this, at the beginning of hot stove season, when teams are kicking the tires on a couple of free agents? Why do we do this? I don't understand it. How many times, I'm asking the audience, if there's anybody who's done this, please write in, and I'll give you a big ol' like on here. How many times have you gone to buy a car, whether it's a used car or maybe a new car at the dealership, or, hey, one of these fancy certified pre-owned, which is a fancy word for used. How many times have you actually kicked the tires before buying it and thought, yeah, you know, that's a good set of tires. I can take a good kicking. I'm going to buy this car. I don't understand why we talk about that with free agents. How about, like, looking into his medicals or talking with his agent to see if the price would fit? It's always kicking the tires. Right now, it's always on the radar, like there's some, flying object out in the distance, and we've got to make sure we get him on the Doppler screen. I don't fully get that. But anyway, enough of that soapbox rant, and I see a couple questions starting to pour in, so I will get to those quickly. But let me just get through those three names quick. The guys that are reportedly on the radar, this according to Lavelle at the Star Tribune, actually Mike Berardino at the Pioneer Press as well, and then our guy Darren Doogie Wolfson at 1500 ESPN and KSTP. Doogie says Jerry Blevins is on the radar. That's an interesting name. I thought that was a guy that was going to get a multi-year deal just based on kind of his bounce back last year from an injury in 2015. Boone Logan, the other lefty that's on the radar. Yeah, nice pitcher. Good look. Would look good in a bullpen somewhere. And Joe Blanton, he's the guy that I picked on my 25-man roster 2 weeks ago. He's right-handed, but since moving to the bullpen, I know everyone gets distracted by the name. They hear Joe Blanton, and they just think of the old the starter who was the other guy in that Phillies super rotation. But Joe Blanton's been a really nice reliever the past 2 seasons, and a lot of people are probably going to remember his postseason collapse with the Dodgers in 2016. Don't let that overly color your impression of him, because he's actually had really, really solid numbers the last 2 years. So Joe Blanton, right-hander, but would also look good in a bullpen somewhere. Those are the 3 names. Let me get. Sorry, I did mention Mike Berardino. So Lavelle had Blanton and Boone Logan. Doogie added Jerry Blevins. Those are the 3 names that are interesting. And then Berardino says former Twin lefty Craig Breslow. I mean, unless he's changed as a pitcher in his mid-30s, I don't see a lot of interest in that on anything other than a minor league deal with a spring training invite. His numbers the past couple seasons, just uninspiring. We love reunion tours around here, right? That's why the Morneau thing kind of became a story, but truthfully, with either one of those guys, I'm not sure I see a real good fit if you're talking about guaranteeing a major league contract. The other 3 relievers I mentioned, I'd guarantee those guys a major league contract all day. Joe Blanton, Boone Logan, and Jerry Blevins. Those guys would improve the 12-man staff as I look at it today. Let's get to some questions. That's enough filibustering from me. I see a couple in the queue here. Devlin. Thank you for stopping by, Devlin. He says, if you have to pick 2 of the 3 relievers to sign, who would it be? Joe Smith, Blanton, Boone Logan, and why? I know you're a big Joe Smith guy, Devlin. I saw you saying that on Twitter, or maybe it was Facebook, yesterday. Joe Smith just doesn't jump off to me as much. I don't know why. I don't know if I'm biased, if there's something that stands out to me, but I'd take Blanton and Logan. I think that Taylor Rogers is going to be a good lefty in the Twins bullpen, and he will be this year. Like, one of the things that gets overlooked about last season when most people checked out is that Taylor Rogers was actually really good. He's a nice young pitcher, left-handed, and he's not going to be your specialist kind of guy like I would say Ryan O'Rourke should be, because lefties can't hit Ryan O'Rourke, and similarly, he can't really get righties out that well, at least in my opinion. Small sample size of innings, I get it, but Taylor Rogers is in my projected 25-man bullpen. I don't see a problem with adding another lefty there. And then the other one, Joe Blanton, I just mentioned, he's been excellent. So yeah, that's who I would go with. Thanks for being first in the queue here, Devlin. Barry also wants to know, are we going to add a bat before Fort Myers? That's a good question. Oh, I don't like that my computer screen just went dim. Good question, Barry. It's hard to say because I wrote about Mike Napoli the other day, and I don't know if you saw the column, so I'll just quickly give you an overview. I'll save you a click, as the kids say. Napoli is interesting because if Maurer's step back against left-handed pitching last year was for real, and we should buy into it, then you're probably going to want to protect him, and Maurer's going to become more of a part-time player. He's going to bat against righties, but he's not going to play first base every day. We already kind of knew that with the injuries that he sustained down the stretch last year. So are you looking for a platoon partner with Maurer? Maybe, but keep in mind that when bullpens grow to 8 men in July or whatever, and you're talking about only having 3 bench players and one of them has to be a catcher, it gets really tough to roster guys who are strictly platoon options. So it depends what you think about Mike Napoli. If you think his career high in home runs and RBIs last season was legitimate, like that's him, then you might take a flyer because eventually he could be a starter at either first base or DH. But if you think that he's an aging slugger who has nothing much to offer beyond the bat and you don't know what to make of the bat, that gets a little bit harder to guarantee either multiple years or some big money to him. I'm all for spending money this season if it helps the long-term process. I don't get this idea of, well, you'd be overspending by $2 million. Who cares? It's not my money. I'm not the one that's spending it. I'd say if you're going to be a team that you think is competing for that second wildcard spot, I don't think you're good enough to do that now, but if you want to be that, you should go try and spend for some more wins. That's my long and short of it, Barry, is I don't know if they'll add a hitter, but Brian Dozier did say at Twins Fest in a radio interview with 1500 ESPN, he said that he made it sound like he was clued into talks. He said there are a couple of big-name guys that the Twins are still following, and he hopes that they add a middle-of-the-order bat. I don't know, add it up, go figure out what middle-of-the-order bats are still left out there. Also worth noting, I'm not sure how closely Brian Dozier would be clued into that kind of stuff. If I was an executive, I don't think I would, just for that very reason. What if he spills the beans on the radio? But it wouldn't be unheard of, right? I mean, they've put Dozier through an awkward offseason. Maybe they feel like they owe it to him to... This is pure speculation on my part. Maybe they feel like, hey, we'll keep, the veterans sort of clued in on what's going on here. I'd be a little bit surprised, but it wouldn't be unheard of. Very, very long answer to your question. I'll try and tie it back to the always, always, always answer to these questions. I don't know. I think it could make some sense, and Napoli would maybe make the most sense to me. There's a column on 1500ESPN.com about that, but it's hard to say. I could see this offense being decent without adding another bat, so keeping Dozier, if they do keep Dozier, kind of is like adding a bat in the way I look at it. Devlin, we got a couple more from you. Now that you've had more of a chance to sit and talk with Falvey and Levine, are you even more sold on them? I'll give the short answer to this question because I have a feeling I'm going to be talking about it a lot in Fort Myers. And by the way, I'm going down to Fort Myers for pitchers and catchers reporting, and I will try to do as many of these videos as I can. For sure, keeping up with my regular once a week, but possibly even more than that. Maybe give you guys some green grass or something like that. Yeah, stay tuned. I'd say be on the 1500 ESPN Facebook page, and you can check out my Facebook page too. I'll have a lot of that stuff. It's just Derek Wetmore / No, I lied. It's facebook.com/Derek Wetmore MLB. So go find that page. I'll have plenty of stuff. Devlin, the short answer, because I'll dive into it a lot in Florida, yes. I am still not sure if it's going to work from a baseball perspective, but in terms of intellect and how they think about the process and how they treat people and the way they talk about making their decisions, I am definitely sold on those elements of the Levine-Falvey partnership. They are very impressive so far. Let's see, give you a little thumbs up, Devlin. Devlin, I'm going to skip a couple, but I'll come back to them, all right? Because there's some other people. Ryan Daman? Sorry, Ryan. I don't know. I had a buddy Daman, but I don't think he spelled it that way. Forgive me. But Ryan says, Mark Hamburger, that is all. All right. Thanks for stopping by. Mark Hamburger, one of the most interesting conversations I've ever had in my short time covering professional baseball. Seemed like a great dude. And some success for the Saints. Let's see. Bob O'Norton. Bob. He says sunny, all caps, with a 10 exclamation points. And not sunny, SUNN, SONN. And I imagine, Bob, based on some of the other stuff I've seen from you on Facebook and my Facebook page and on Twitter.com, I assume you're talking about Sonny Gray. I've seen a fair amount of questions about, are the Twins interested in Sonny Gray? If I'm the Athletics, Bob, I'd trade him eventually. I don't think I'd trade him right now. I'd let him pitch and build up some value, and then when every contender is looking for pitching at the deadline, because they always are, I'd try to trade Sonny Gray then. I'd have to look back more into Oakland's timeline, but I remember that's the conclusion I came to when I was looking in, it was either last trade deadline or September, October. I remember settling down on the idea that Sonny Gray is definitely somebody who should be traded. But he's definitely not somebody who should be traded right now. Kind of the opposite approach I took with Brian Dozier. I thought Brian Dozier, if you're going to trade him, I think you trade him this winter. We'll see. It still could happen. It could happen in spring training. But Sonny Gray, I'm with you, man. I'm totally with you. I think I was talking about that maybe a year ago, but then the injury, and it's tough to make the timelines work all the time. So Yes, I hear you. You say your next comment here is, okay, I'll stop, I promise. I'm not going to like that one. I'm going to like your sunny one because I'm with you. I think the Twins eventually will have to trade for top-end pitching. I'm just not sure the timeline fits right now. Let's see. I'm going to see if... Do these comments come up any clearer on my computer screen than they do on my cellular device? Oh, Ryan, he says, I work for the Saints. Mark is my buddy. See, I'm saying, Mark's a great dude. Not sure he fixes the Twins bullpen right now, but I'm totally with you on that. Let's see. It's weird. On my computer, they come in out of order. Let's go reverse order then. So Devlin, back to Craig Breslow. He says he has apparently changed his delivery. Now he does a 3/4 arm slot. Yeah, I mean, we've heard that before. I get it. And I wasn't at the showcase, so I have no idea if he was impressive or not. If he was super impressive, I would guess somebody would have taken a flyer on him with a major league contract. More likely, probably, he'll get a minor league deal with a spring invite. That's just the market right now. What's the rest of your comment here, Devlin? Supposedly helping improve his ground ball rate. Yeah, and good. It's a flyer. Some team will take a flyer, but I don't buy into. This is me. This is maybe this is unfair, but the way I read those kinds of things all the time is that it's not. I don't want to say purely speculative because if scouts see something, they'll know a lot more than me about something like that. But I'm skeptical every time I hear so-and-so has reinvented himself and will have a lights-out dominant year this year. It's like, maybe, but what's the percentage chance? I know I'm the non-zero guy, and I will say there's a non-zero chance that Craig Breslow has a great MLB season this year. But I think that the probability leans against giving him a major league deal, and frankly, maybe this is just my biases and my cold, hard, calculating robot brain talking too much, but I would not be as interested in Breslow as I would in, say, Boone Logan. I think Logan would be a veritable upgrade right now. So anyway, thank you for the question. Sonny, I laugh when I see that. That comment should be pinned, Bob, but I'm not going to do that. So other people can still get theirs in. Joshua Keel asks, I'm trying to read from my computer screen here. He says, do you foresee the Twins making any more free agent signings? Yes, I do. I think that they'll make one more or two more before opening day. I don't know before spring training. I would guess probably before spring training. But from what I'd heard, it's not a guarantee that it'll be before the beginning of camp, but that people with knowledge of the situation believe that the Twins will sign at least one more pitcher. I think you can expect that to be fairly soon. Just let's see how the market shakes out. I don't know if it's going to be a top-end arm necessarily. And heck, it could be a bat too. They could get an arm and a bat. But I think for sure you'll see at least one more pitcher signed. Thank you for the question. Let's see. Now I'm going back and forth, confusing myself. Where's your question? I'm going to like it. Oh, there you go, Joshua. Boom. Thumbs up. Let's see what Stuart has to say. Stuart says, which player in the minor league system do you think has a chance to have an impact with the big league club this season? It's a good question, and I guess I'll have to make some inferences here, because the thing about this question is, like, you have to assume they're not going to make, like, the opening day roster. Like, if J.O. Barrios doesn't make the opening day roster, there's my answer. Like, done. He's going to be the one with the impact, but he might make the rotation. So then you start looking around and you figure, well, like, Buxton's going to make it, and Kepler's going to make it, Rosario's probably going to make it. Infield, it's hard to see a minor league infielder having a big impact. Unless, like, let's say Dozier gets traded. Let's say they move Polanco to second base, which I wouldn't. I'd keep him at short just to see. I'm curious. And then, like, an Angel Vielma comes up and plays shortstop, and he's a wizard with the glove and can't really hit. But I don't know that I see that as being super likely. is Kenny Vargas going to start the year in the minors? Because I'd say he'd have a shot to be an impact guy. How about Byung-Ho Park? He could potentially have an impact. I'm not real sold on... I didn't put him in my opening day lineup when I projected my 25-man roster. You can find that projection on my Facebook page, I believe. So it's probably a pitcher. I think that's where I'm kind of leaning with this, because I don't know how the catching situation is going to shake out. I kind of see it as Jason Castro, 3 guys competing for his backup spot. And I could legitimately see it being any one of those guys. John Ryan Murphy, Mitch Garver, or the new guy, Chris Jimenez. Let me think about pitchers for a while. Stuart, if I just pick one right now, I feel like I'd be overstepping, because I don't know who's going to make the opening day bullpen. But like a JT Shagwa, if he doesn't make it out of camp, he could have an impact. There are a lot of guys like that, like a Shagwa, Jake Reed, Mason Melitakis, guys that are sort of ready to be bullpen arms in the big leagues, at least based on sort of their timeline and some of the stats that they've put up. Different paths for all 3 of them. I'm not trying to compare pitchers here, but yeah, I'd say it'd be somebody in the bullpen most likely. Or here's a dark horse for you, Steven Gonsalves, if that's how you pronounce his name. I just realized that's like one of the first times I've said it out loud. You read his name hundreds of times, and then I think it's Gonsalves. Somebody correct me. Seth Stows, if you're watching this video, please correct me on this. Or Jeremy Nygaard, or Cody Christie. Any of those guys. Anybody who's following this and is like, nope, you just butchered Steven's last name. All right, I apologize, Steven. If he doesn't make the rotation out of camp, I could see him getting called up at some point and making a couple of starts. I don't know if he'd be like a huge impact arm down the stretch, because you just never know how a guy's going to adapt to the big leagues. But we'll see. That's the name to watch. Thank you for the question, my man. Stuart, I'm going to see if I can like this on my Facebook. I think that worked. What else we got here? Chris Gonsalves, our favorite name, and Barrios. June 1st, are both guys on the roster in the show? Well, Barrios, yeah. I say Barrios is for sure, just because he surfaced last year. The other guy, whose name I struggle to pronounce, it's a coin flip, I think. I don't see him making the rotation out of camp. I know some people are talking about it like it could happen. Some people on the outside. I haven't heard the Twins talk about that yet, which is kind of what colors my impression. But he's put up some good minor league numbers. I mean, there's no ignoring that. You can't deny the fact that he's dominated down there. So, possible. Sorry, Chris, but I'm going to give you the old, there's a non-zero chance that both of them are. But if I had to put stock, if I had to buy stock on one of them, I think it'd be Barrios before him. But who knows? I've been wrong hundreds of times, probably. Let's see here. Devlin, how do you explain to Twins fans that this isn't the same old Twins front office, given the lack of moves, lack of high-profile moves? It's incredibly frustrating. I hear you. And it's a product of the market, and I think it's also a product of just my willingness to be patient. I think more, and that's not a criticism. I don't mean to say, fans, you got to be patient. You don't have to be. The Twins lost 103 games last year. If you want to tune out, I am not here to tell you otherwise. I hope you keep tuning into my videos, but I don't care if you buy tickets, and I don't care if you buy jerseys and bobbleheads. It doesn't matter to me. So I'm not trying to sell you on the new front office. I just think, based on talking to Falvey and Levine and other people involved in some of these decisions, I think the Twins are going about this in a really smart way. I think, too, one of the differences between the way I view them and the way that a lot of fans that I talk to on my Facebook page view them, and I understand, it's not no one's right, no one's wrong, it's just, I don't care if they don't win the World Series this year. I'm just going to analyze them to the best of my ability and try to put out the best work that I possibly can, no matter what happens with the Twins, like I did last year when they lost 103. But fans kind of want them to win the World Series every year, and I get that, and that's just a separation. I'm a Tottenham Hotspur fan, English Premier League soccer. I want them to win. So I understand sort of the conflict between, yeah, but that's not possible every year, and yeah, but I want it to happen. I think that's one of the big things that separates the way I view the Twins, from the way a lot of people I talk to view the Twins, is they're talking about, like, well, would Napoli put them over the hump and be a World Series team? And I think the answer is no, but, like, would he help them win a couple more games, or would he be a good platoon fit for Mauer, or could he be the everyday DH if Vargas and Park don't pan out, or is he better than those guys? That's the kind of stuff I want to analyze more so than is he a World Series winning piece. So Devlin, I don't know the best way to answer your question. Like, I'm not here to sell you on them, but I do think they're smart guys, and I think we should let it play out. We'll see how this works. I'm also curious to see how they continue to fill out the front office, because I think there are probably a couple more hires on the way. Let's see. Michael. Is Perkins going to be ready this year? Good question. I just talked to Glenn the other day. I wrote a column on it, actually, about where he's at in his rehab. He's hoping to climb up on a mound in a couple of weeks here and have 4 bullpens under his belt by the time they get rolling down there. Will he be ready for the start of the year? It's possible Perkins could open the year on the DL, just based on the length of recovery. He'll be 8 months out from his surgery, February 23rd. And that was a really significant surgery. It's not the same as Tommy John. Tommy John's probably a longer recovery. But Tommy John, there's a little more certainty. It's kind of like, hey, yeah, you're going to be down for, 12 to 18 months, but here's what you'll be when you get back with 90% certainty. Perkins had, I've got a weak stomach, so I won't go too deep into it, but he had a labrum in his left shoulder detach from the bone, and doctors had to reattach that. And then it just takes time for that to heal. It's not something you can speed up by, like, shooting a light at it or doing magnets or weird, electro shock therapy. It's just your body takes some time to heal from something that significant. And the way he talked about it is that it's, like, very possible that he never gets back to the height of his powers. And I think that would be incredibly unnerving. He seems really calm. He's like, well, I've done all of the work that I possibly can. I know that I've gone through my rehab to the best of my ability. And if it's not meant to be, then it's not meant to be. And I thought it was a really, it's like a Zen approach to his recovery. Long answer to your question, but is he going to be ready for the start of the year? I'm 50-50 right now, but is he going to be ready at some point? Yeah, I think he'll give it a go. Is he ever going to be Glenn Perkins with the 96-mile-an-hour fastball and the wipeout slider? I'm not so sure about that. That one's harder to answer. So kind of a messy answer to your question, but that's the situation right now. Sean says, sweet sweater. Sweet taste, Sean. Barry asked a similar Perkins question. I think I kind of answered that. Dan asks, Paul Molitor is in the final year of a 3-year contract. Will his contract be extended, or are they in wait-and-see mode based on 2017 results? I haven't heard yet. They're clearly not going to make that decision this spring. I would be surprised if they did. I think Molitor's a good manager, though. I'd try to make it work with him long-term, but the Twins probably aren't under any kind of pressure to do that right now, so that's my answer for that. Something to monitor for sure, though, Dan. It's a good question. I just think we're a little premature to give that. If you're asking, will he get a contract extension in the next 2 weeks, I mean, based on what I know about the situation, which is precious little, I don't think I would expect that. Joshua, why can't Mauer offer to restructure his contract a little bit? Not going to answer Mauer questions. If Mauer signed a $10 million contract and he was an MVP, would the Twins offer to restructure it? I think we give teams and owners far too much of a pass on the money side of the game. That's like saying, I'll take, for example, my bosses. I'll throw myself under the bus here. If I have a bad week, I was sick 2 days last week, and literally, couldn't open my laptop and answer emails. I was down for the count. Well, I agreed to a salary at the beginning of the year. If they came back and then said, yeah, but we didn't think you were going to take those 2 days off, so how about a pay cut? I'd be pretty mad. Similarly, if I do all this extra stuff, if I, instead of going to a Super Bowl party, I go and I shoot a Facebook Live video for a bunch of Vikings fans so that, that we can either grow our reach or spend more time interacting with fans, the reason that we do this whole thing, I'm not going to go in and I'm going to say, yeah, but, well, hey, I know we agreed to this salary, but I did a little bit more, so... It's not how it works, like, especially in professional sports. I just get so tired of hearing that athletes are overpaid when they're, like, the lifeblood of this thing. And most of them, in the minor leagues, don't make it, and they're not paid very well for their audition to potentially become professionals someday. So I'm not, that's my soapbox. I'm not going to entertain the Mauer pay cut question. I know he's not worth $23 million. I should throw that in. I'm not here sitting and say he's earning $23 million this year. It's probably not true. It's just not the way contracts work. Yeah, Joshua, you say in your next comment here, I don't think we're getting $23 million out of him anymore. That's right. That's true. How about when he was, winning the MVP? Was he paid fairly for his services that year? Like, no way. It's just the way contracts work, man. Chris says, so you're saying there's a chance. Yes, I am telling you there's a chance. Well... Then Joshua asks, why do the Twins keep going after guys who are in their late 30s and are has-beens? Who do you want them to sign? Like, who's out there right now that you think would help the bullpen or the starting staff? If you can give me a list of those guys, I can either give you a reason why they're not going after them, or I can get on your side and say, you're right, the Twins should spend some money on these guys. This is who is left unsigned. Guys in their early to mid-30s. And that's how free agency works in baseball. You don't sign somebody who's 24 and going to be a star for the next 6 years. Devlin, back to you. Do you think that T. Ryan having so many failed moves has blinded casual Twins fans about the new regime and makes them automatically think they'll fail? Yeah, I think that it's the nature of sports. I don't blame Twins fans. I don't blame fans at all in general. Like I mentioned, I can probably see some players that I would want my Tottenham Hotspur to go after to pair with Harry Kane and Dele Alli and Dembele, but I don't see it the same way as I do when I'm being like an objective reporter. I just like turn that little part of my brain. And in this case, I think it's human nature to say the Twins have been terrible since 2011. Therefore, they'll always be terrible. They'll always make stupid decisions. But I'll point out that even along some of the failed decisions of the Bill Smith, Terry Ryan era, it's not everything was bad. I just think they had bad process, and like it led to a lot of mistakes. And I think that there are some cases where they made mistakes and didn't know they were mistakes even. Well, okay, so fine, but let's give these guys, how long have they been on the job? It's January 31st. Let's call it Feb 1. They started in early November. And they've changed a ton of things behind the scenes, and, like, they haven't played a single game yet. They haven't even had a spring training workout yet. So, I get what you're saying, Devlin, and I know why people are mad. I'm not trying to, like, dismiss that or anything by any means. I totally empathize with it. But, let's give them 12 months and figure out what they did in those 12 months. And then, if we're still wanting to burn down the palace, okay, we maybe have another discussion about it. But this, like, just overreactive social media climate is a little hard to contend with, and it's not the perfect breeding ground for rational thought. That's a Daniel Kahneman thing, thinking fast, thinking slow. In this case, I think we should think a little bit more slowly. Hey, other questions? I want to make sure I get to everybody that's on here. Birdie got a shot to make it to the big leagues? That's what Chris wants to know. Yeah, definitely he's got a shot. I think he could be an impact pitcher in the bullpen, but I don't know what the percentage chance is. It's non-zero. But, like, does he make it out of spring training? I don't know. It's hard. The bullpen was the hardest part for me to project. I think Birdie, you don't hear as much about him anymore, and I get it, the arm issues, but I don't think you should necessarily sleep on him. I think that's a guy who could be an impact pitcher at some point. In fact, I wanted to check. Keith Law posted his Twins prospects today. Let's see if he's got Birdie on there. Yeah, I think he put him, not to give away the column, because you should totally go get ESPN Insider. I think Keith Law's stuff is worth the price of admission, and I'm not paid to say that. He put Birdie at 17. And here's what he wrote. I won't give you the whole column. I'll give you what he wrote about Birdie. He missed 2016 with a bruised elbow, throws 100 miles an hour when he's on the mound, and an upper 80 slider. Should be good to go in March. That's all he said. Yeah, I mean, his scouting report's accurate. Dude's got a big fastball, and he was one of the guys that was kind of being quietly talked about last year behind the scenes, saying like, hey, you didn't hear this from me, but maybe keep an eye on Birdie. He's got a live arm. Okay, sounds good. I saw him pitch in a couple of games, and he was impressive, man. So to answer the question in a longer way, could he be? Yes, he could be. Will he be? No idea. I've got no clue, and I won't pretend to know. But that's a good question. Thank you for not forgetting about that dude, Chris. What level of SPF do you wear? Doug wants to know about my sunscreen habits. Actually, I read somewhere, and I could be totally wrong about this, so some other fair-skinned brother let me know, but I read that anything over SPF 29 or 30 is like totally overkill, and you should still be reapplying regularly, even if you're wearing SPF 100. But let's see if I have. I'll be right back. The thing that keeps the sun off my head in Fort Myers is not just sunscreen, because I go double duty. Hold on one second. So it's actually the bucket hat that protects me from the sun most days down in Fort Myers. Royce got back. This is just a quick funny story from the office. Royce got back the other day. He rolls in to do his show, and he was tan as all get out, right? Because he's been in Fort Myers for a couple of weeks doing columns and doing his radio show from down there. And I'm going down second week of February or whatever, a couple of weeks here now. And I noted on how tan he looked, because most people around here not exactly at their bronzest in late January. And I told him that he'd have to give me a couple of weeks down in Fort Myers, but pretty soon we'd be able to compare our tans. And I can promise you that it's going to be this at the end of February, at the end of March, at the end of April, and I got the bucket hat to thank for that. Got to stay safe. So let's see. Ben also wants to know, is Castro going to be an upgraded catcher over Suzuki? I think he will. I think that throwing out runners is going to be huge, and I think that the part that's going underappreciated, because everyone wants to talk about framing pitches and stealing strikes, and I get it. It's not to say that that's irrelevant. It's relevant. But I think what we're losing in all that is the fact that Castro's been lauded more by the Twins for his... This is weird with the camera on, but... he's been lauded more by the Twins for his leadership, his game planning, and his game calling. I asked him on the radio, you can find it on our latest Touch 'em All podcast, I asked him, like, what is the most important thing that you bring behind the plate? I forget about the offense, because that's something we'll have to look at here too. But he said the most time-consuming thing, not necessarily the most challenging or most important, but it just takes a lot of time, is series prep. Going over hitters, figuring out their strengths, their weaknesses, their recent trends, how you can get them out, how your pitcher's stuff plays to get that guy out. Let's say this guy can't hit a curveball, but you know your pitcher's curveball is just this big loopy thing that he spins up there and can't hardly throw it for strikes. You're maybe still going to attack him with a fastball. You try to figure out how your pitcher's strengths combat the hitter's weaknesses, and it's this constant game of cat and mouse that I think Castro's... not that Kurt Suzuki didn't bring that, but I think we've got to pay attention more to what the Twins are saying about Castro, and what the Twins are saying is that they love his leadership, his game calling, his game planning that goes in pre-series, and how he works with the pitchers. Thad Levine said, talking with a couple of pitchers who've worked with Castro, anecdotally they refer to him as a pitching coach on the field. I think that's nothing but a good thing for the Twins. We'll see how much of an impact it has out. But controlling the running game, too, because Suzuki was really bad at that. I think Twins pitchers have been guilty of being really bad at that in the past. But Castro is league average or so. So that's a fairly big step forward. Dan says, hey, Derek just hopped on late. Realistically, when should Twins fans expect to see a playoff contender on the field again? Could be this year. I don't want to get any hopes up unnecessarily, but it could happen this season. be like sneak into the second wild card, if you're like hovering around 500 and then you add a couple pieces at the deadline, well, suddenly that's an interesting team. I think more likely you're talking about next year. I think 2018 should be the expectation. And in fact, I think if the Twins aren't making the postseason in 2018, they've either planned something wrong, some of their prospects failed to pan out, some of the young guys imploded, or they haven't done enough to fix their pitching staff. And in that case, I think they're, culpable. I think you can blame them. You can fault them if they're not one of the teams that's in serious contention for a postseason spot. Not saying World Series. I'm not saying they're going to win the 2018 World Series, but they should be contenders, if not this year, then I would think next year. Thanks for hopping on, Dan. Whoa. Doug says, do you think the Wild should trade a D to get a third or fourth line center? Matthew Collar's the guy to ask about that. My first quick take is it's tempting to move a defenseman just because of the Vegas draft, but I almost think with the way that this team is playing right now, and considering that it's really hard to just plug in a center, if you're getting a third or a fourth line guy, you're talking like a checking line center, even though the Wild don't really have a prototypical checking line. Man, I don't know if I would really pull the trigger on moving like a Matt Dumba unless I'm getting somebody, a top six forward back in return. I think there are some players that aren't playing as well as they possibly could be right now, and if you saw some steps forward from them, maybe it'd be good, but I don't know. Eric Stahl has been a phenomenal addition that I did not expect by any means, and so they're definitely cup contenders as you look at it right now, but I wouldn't get scared of that Vegas draft and move somebody unless you think you're going to move like a Scandella and just try to get some equal value back in return that you can protect. That's a long answer to your question that I'm probably underqualified to talk about, but I guess thanks for stopping by. Kind of thought this was a Twins video. Jack wants to know, what would you like to see our rotation be on opening day? Also keep doing big things, buddy. Yeah, thank you. I will. Not sure how big this is. I'm wearing a caribou sweater and a bucket hat on Facebook Live, but opening day rotation, I projected it. I don't like to say what I would, what would I like to do, because that implies like I like some players more than others. I try to be objective about it, but the way I projected the opening day rotation, Irvin Santana, Phil Hughes, Trevor May, that one needs to happen, I think. Who else? Kyle Gibson, and then Hector Santiago. Some other guys waiting in the wings. Tyler Duffy, Gonzalez, J.O. Barrios, maybe the Justin Haley kid. There's any numbers of ways that I could see it breaking in spring training. But those are the 5 that I projected. And I'm getting close at the end of the video. I got to go drive to the studio. I'm joining Mackie and Judd at 11:30 at 1500 ESPN. You can tune in if you want to hear more Twins talk. Where else can I send you guys? Oh, if you're not already liking my Facebook page, please go like that. We do Twins talk every day, basically. I don't think we've missed a day. Derek Wetmore, MLB. I always post the Touch 'em All podcast there, too. So if you're not listening to those, check one out. They're a lot of fun. I record those with Phil Mackey, and it's kind of nerdy, but it's a lot of Twins, it's a lot of baseball, it's a lot of analytics. I'll get to one more question, then I really got to run, because Ben asks, is Mauer still going to bat third? Where can we expect to see him bat? How about Park? I don't think Park will open the year on the roster. That's what I projected anyways. We'll see. He could surprise me a lot in spring training. And like I said, I've been wrong before. Mauer going to bat third? I don't know. I think Byron Buxton is really the big lurking variable. If he could bat leadoff, or third, or fifth, he could hit in a lot of places in the order, but truthfully, I'd probably bat Sano third. I think that I would say, and lineup construction really doesn't matter that much to me. It's just kind of put your best hitters at the front, and as they get worse, they go down the order. But if Buxton's going to be the guy he was in September, you want to see him in the first inning. I'm not sure I'm buying that yet, so my first 3 hitters might be like Dozier, Mauer, Sano, or something like that. I don't know. We'll see. Let's let it play out a little bit more. Devlin asks, do you see the Twins using Haley similar to J.R. Graham? I don't know. I haven't seen Haley pitch. Let me get to spring training and see. But I wouldn't be, if I was the Twins, I wouldn't feel obligated to keep him. I think if he can help the bullpen, fantastic. But the Twins really kind of babied J.R. Graham along and then just kicked him to the curb at the beginning of the next year. It's kind of like a wasted roster spot. J.R. Graham, good dude, but it didn't seem like they really had a long-term plan for him, and then they proved that they didn't by saying bye-bye early in the following year. So, don't know on Haley yet. If Justin Haley can help their pitching staff, I think he'll be on the team. That is it for me on this video. Thank you. Thanks for joining. Check me out on Mackie and Judd, 11:30, and then Touch 'em All podcast later today. Just go subscribe to that on your smartphone. That's what I do. Yeah, I appreciate you guys joining along. I'll see you over on my Facebook page for some more Twins talk later. Peace.